It's the portal entry that nobody saw coming on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. Out this week is my buddy Josh Helmer. Go follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef as well. And I mean, my goodness, what in the world is going on in Norman? Cayden Green, just out of nowhere, enters the transfer portal. It was On3 that reported that sometime midday on Tuesday that the starting left guard for the Sooners was out the door. And there's no good explanation from anybody. There was no transfer portal announcement from Cayden Green on social media. His dad deletes his own Twitter account. The coaching staff, a lot of them are still out on the recruiting trail, and everybody's kind of left guessing as to what went down. Now, there's a lot of speculation that this is going to be NIL related. Could be that he wants to play offensive tackle, and that wasn't part of the deal going into 2024. That's all speculation. Nobody can really know. But what really, we're just kind of left in shock and awe. We didn't even get a chance to dwell in the greatness that was the addition of Deion Burks out of Purdue in the transfer portal before this news came down. I mean, Cayden Green had started 7 games for you, had become a true freshman All-American based on some publications, and was an integral part of your offensive line and a lot of what had become so successful for your offensive line, especially in the run game late in the season because of his ability to move, his physicality, his size. I mean, he became a really, really good player for you. Maybe not the highest graded player if you look at Pro Football Focus's, offensive line grades, but still a dude that was really, really good and was only going to continue to get better because, again, just a true freshman. Probably wasn't expected to start much this year or play a whole lot except for rotational snaps, but the Sooners needed him, and he stepped in a big spot against the Texas Longhorns and was really, really good. Might have been one of the more impactful players in that game, especially on the offensive side of the football. So to see that he's bouncing all of a sudden out of nowhere, you go read, Parker Thune's report over at OU Insider, part of the member boards over there. It sounds like there's been no communication aside from a few things that maybe Cayden shared with Parker, but nothing that he felt comfortable going public with. At the same time, it's just odd that nobody at Lee Summit North, nobody in Cayden Green's camp, nobody at OU had any inclination that this was going to happen, or at least from Lee Summit North and OU had no inclination that this was going to happen and haven't had a good explanation as to why this is happening. According to reports out there, on Sunday, he had his meeting with the coaching staff. All went well. All was right with the world. Seemed things were going okay, and everybody was going to move into 2024. Get ready for the Alamo Bowl and then move into 2024 with Cayden Green as one of your returning members of your offensive line, an offensive line that is already losing 4 starters with Guyton and Rouse and McCade Matire and Andrew Rame all leaving. You're like, okay, at least we got Cayden Green coming back. You feel really good about that left side, especially if you pair him with Jacob Sexton over there at left tackle. And now you're just left wondering what in the world went wrong? What in the world happened? And I mean, it very well could be NIL. It very well just could simply come down to, hey, somebody saw that, hey, there's this really good player out there, and we're going to throw the bag at him and see if we can lure him away from the Oklahoma Sooners. Was tampering involved? I mean, who knows? There's not going to be any clear-cut answer on that. There won't be any clear-cut answer on exactly what happened until Cayden Green is with his new team and speaks on what happened, if he even speaks on what happened, because it's not going to be like Oklahoma media are going to get an opportunity to ask this guy questions at his next destination, unless somebody just camps out outside his dorm room or something like that. But dude, it's just shocking. Absolutely shocking. You know, this is a program that has been built on really good offensive line play and good offensive line development from Bill Beatonbow. And Bill Beatonbow is like the least of the concerns here, because how does anybody prepare for a dude just up and leaving? You listen to the player interviews after practice on Tuesday, and everybody was shocked that he was gone. I guess with finals week happening, there was, you know, there's some uncertainty as to who's going to be on the practice field at any given time. And maybe they just assumed that Cayden Green was off doing tests. And apparently he was off going into the transfer portal, because nobody was aware that this was happening. McCade Matire was one of those players that was asked about Cayden Green, and he was as shocked as everybody else. Billy Bowman, same. Like, these guys had no clue that a starting member of their offensive line, a true freshman captain at one point in the season, was gone. And that just, there's a lot to be said about all of that, and you can kind of make your own assumptions, I guess. But it just, man, it's just so weird. And it strikes you as really, really odd. You know, people leave via the transfer portal all the time. They do. It's the nature of the beast, right? It's the nature of college football in this day and age. But usually there's some kind of discussion with the coaching staff. Usually there's some kind of portal announcement. Usually there's some kind of discussion as to what's going down and why it's going down or whatnot. But for the player, for the family, for them all to completely go dark and nobody have any opportunity to discuss what went down, it's shocking. And for the coaching staff to really not be aware of what's going on and not be given the common courtesy that says, hey, we're going into the portal. And who knows, maybe they got a text message out of the blue after it came down. I don't know. But based on all the reporting that's out there, nobody on Oklahoma's coaching staff had any idea that this was happening, which means Cayden Green and his family left Oklahoma kind of in the lurch. And he's going to have his reasons. They might be good answers for you. They might not be good answers for you. But there's always a right way to do things, and there's always a wrong way to do things. There's a right way to quit a job, right? You always give yourself, you give your employer 2 weeks notice. I've given a month notice in some jobs just to give them a little bit more time to replace my position. One that was not necessarily an easily replaced position, something that might have taken a little bit more time to get somebody trained up and things like that. But 2 weeks, man, that's kind of the general standard. And I know we shouldn't always compare ourselves to athletes, especially professional athletes, because the jobs are completely different. But when you've been committed to a place and you've just had a meeting that, according to all accounts, went really, really well, there's a way to go about deciding, hey, you know what? I'd actually rather go. There's a conversation that should happen. There's a discussion. There's some notification that should occur. And I hope that happened. But again, from the way everything sounds, nothing went down like that. There was no discussion. There was no meeting. There was no, letter of resignation even. I mean, there was nothing. It's just, he gone, we're gone, adios, see you later. We'll see you at our next stop. Because that's the weird thing. So I write for Sooners Wire. We put out an article just last week about, Cayden Green and Nick Anderson being named to True Freshman All-American list. And Cayden Green's dad retweets our message. Cayden Green himself welcomes the player via the transfer portal. Thanks, Coach Beatonbow, who congratulates him on being a true freshman All-American. So it all just strikes you as incredibly strange and incredibly odd. And if it's not NIL related, how in the world did the relationship go that poorly, sour that quickly? We're all going to be left wondering. We're all going to be left guessing about what Cayden Green's motives were. But really what's going to impact Oklahoma more than anything is how they respond along the offensive line going into 2024. We'll talk about what it means for this group, what Oklahoma is going to have to do to answer the Cayden Green departure coming up after the break. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We are your team every day here on Locked On Sooners and part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On's just launched their newest 24/7 sports streaming channel over on YouTube. Get the latest from our local experts across the network, getting you covered with the top stories of today on the Locked On Sports channel on YouTube with 24/7 streaming, the first ever 24/7 streaming live on YouTube. So Cayden Green's gone. What does it mean for the offensive line? We're going to talk about Deion Burks in a second because that's going to be a big time addition for the Sooners, but we'll talk about that in our later segment. But the offensive line, man, it was already a need for the Sooners. You've already seen them go into the portal and address one of their tackle positions with Spencer Brown. Now, maybe he's a guy that could potentially bump into guard and play that position too. But what you're left with right now is Jacob Sexton at left tackle. And then in the future, it's going to be Spencer Brown at right tackle, we presume. And then at center, the way things sound in the bowl practices right now is that Joshua Bates is going to be your starting center for the Sooners, which means Troy Everett is going to be your starting left guard, probably with Cayden Green gone. And then at right guard, you might be looking at like a Jake Taylor or Caleb Schaefer right now for the bowl game. But going into 2024, man, you're left with a lot of needs or at least a lot of uncertainty at this point. Yeah, I mean, we're big fans of Joshua Bates here on Locked On Sooners. Dude's a great dude. We think he's going to be a great player. It's just, is he ready to take on that next step? And especially as they go into the SEC and take on those challenges. I hope so. I really do. I really hope that he's ready to hit the ground running and thrives once he gets that center job. It could be Troy Everett's center job at some point. But at some point, you're going to have to address your guard position, and you've got to go into the transfer portal, and you're going to have to add another interior offensive line piece. That's really kind of as simple as I can make it. Yeah, you've got Caleb Schaefer potentially coming back for another year. Didn't really play a whole lot this year, but how much can you rely upon him to kind of take that step and fill the void left by Cayden Green? You got Jake Taylor. He's still kind of returning from that injury that knocked him out of the season last year. I would love for him to take over there at left guard and be an impact player for you. We'll see. But yeah, man, guard is really going to be a place that Oklahoma is going to have to address in the portal. They've done a really good job over the years in addressing the transfer portal or addressing the offensive line in the transfer portal, whether it was Chris Murray or Wanye Morris or Tyler Guyton or Walter Rouse or McCade Matire, Troy Everett, Caleb Schaefer, good rotational depth pieces. I mean, they're going to have to do it again. They're going to have to hit a home run in the portal. They added Spencer Brown already that allows you to have a right tackle option. But man, get in on the Chase Besantis sweepstakes. It sounds like he has been offered at least. And I mean, that's going to be one of those that probably comes down to NIL as well. The guy played at Texas A&M, was a true freshman All-American, and was one of the best offensive linemen in college football this year. You're going to need to maybe potentially pony up to get that kid to come in and play guard for you at Oklahoma. Other places, there's a lot of talk about the kid from North Texas, Fabici Nui, who has a relationship with Seth Luttrell, 6'3", 310, just a redshirt sophomore, someone who's the number 157 player in the portal, but one of the top 10 interior offensive linemen in the transfer portal, an experienced guy, got some experience at North Texas, going to be taking a step up if he does end up coming to Oklahoma. But I mean, they're going to need to add one of the, or both of those guys in the portal to get your offensive line a little bit more stabilized, because I mean, it was a question mark. It was going to be a question mark going into next season because you don't have much experience along the offensive line and you're relying on guys that haven't played a whole lot. Now you've got talented dudes that you like and you feel optimistic about and you feel encouraged by, but you just don't know. You don't know where they're at right now in their development. And you hope that they take that big leap this offseason, especially in the spring, that gives you some security that lets you think, okay, we're good to go. We're going to feel great about where we're headed, because you got to be able to protect your quarterback. Jackson Arnold, he's the biggest thing that he's the biggest reason why you'll have success in 2024 or lack thereof. And if you can't keep him upright, it's going to be really, really difficult for him to have the impact that he's capable of having with the talent that he has. I think your defense is going to be better than it was last year. It's going to continue to improve, especially with Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman back. But you got to be able to block. You got to be able to block for Gavin Sawchuk running the football. You got to be able to block for Jackson Arnold running the offense, throwing the ball, dropping back, doing what Jackson Arnold does. Because if he's under pressure nonstop, it's not going to matter how good he is or how good your wide receiver talent is. If you can't block anybody, none of that matters. So for as good a job as Bill Bedenbaugh has done since he's arrived in Norman, this might be his greatest challenge yet. Taking an offensive line that has very little starting experience, finding 5 guys that he can take into the SEC and win football games with. That's the challenge. Now, Bill Bedenbaugh has done a great job in development and taking on, guys that were in the portal for whatever reason and became impact players. He's done that. He's shown the capability of developing guys. I mean, Tyler Guyton was playing tight end not too long ago. And before that was playing basketball. And we're seeing NFL mock draft projections of him being a first-round talent in the 2024 NFL draft. Walter Rouse is probably going to get drafted. We saw Chris Murray get drafted. We've seen, Anton Harrison and Creed Humphrey become big-time players in the NFL. Orlando Brown, same. So trust the guy that can develop. Yes, the stars matter. We're not going to sit here and say they don't matter, but let's also trust that, again, they've added some really good pieces along the offensive line, pieces that they like, that Brent Venables likes, that Seth Luttrell likes, that Joe John Finley likes, that Bill Bedenbaugh likes, more importantly than anything. And trust that Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be able to develop these guys and get them ready to go. You've got intriguing options from your 2022 cycle, your 2023 cycle as well, whether it's, Taylor and Sexton, or you go to 2023 and you're looking at Heath Ozida and Logan Howland, Joshua Bates. I mean, not Cayden Green as far as the experience and the star status goes, but you've got some talented individuals that you can continue to build your offensive line around. But now you have to kind of fast track it a little bit more. You lost a guy with 7 starts under his belt that played really, really good ball for you. Now you have to figure out a way to return the Sooners offensive line back to a really, really good unit while losing 5 starters over one offseason. That's a tall task. Well, one area that's not a tall task and one dude that continues to crush it on the recruiting trail, we'll talk about Deion Burks and his addition to the Oklahoma Sooners coming up after the break here on Locked On Sooners. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Again, we're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Now, on Deion Burks, the Oklahoma Sooners are getting a very talented wide receiver, a dude with big-time speed, big-time playmaking ability. Finished the 2023 season in the Big Ten. He was 5th in targets with 96. But unfortunately was not super efficient, just had 47 catches, finished 13th in the conference in receiving yards, and tied for 4th in touchdowns. Now, I say his numbers weren't super efficient. I don't think that's a complete knock on Burks. I think part of that is probably quarterback play involved as well. When you have a quarterback that isn't super good, it can certainly affect your numbers a little bit. And I think that probably Purdue is dealing with that a little bit as well. Deion Burks, he showed an ability to be a game-breaking player for the Boilermakers. And, I'm sure you've seen the clips running around, but he just shows that ability to break tackles and to use that breakaway speed to create big plays, whether it's, after the catch or it's, winning deep. He averaged 13.7 yards per target down the field. His air yards per target down the field, averaged 1.46 yards per route run. So, the guy had some areas where he can continue to get better, had 8 drops on the season, but still was really, really good for the Boilermakers last year. Had a big game against Fresno State with 152 yards receiving. Also came through with really solid performances against Illinois with 83 yards. And that was a pretty good Illinois defense. And then had 87 yards against Indiana. Ultimately, 73 against Wisconsin. Again, a team that has a pretty good defense usually. This is a guy that averaged 4.7 yards after the catch per reception. The drops, that's going to be something that he has to continue to get better at. But he shows a good ability to pick up first downs, to force missed tackles. He had 18 missed tackles forced on the season, had 29 receptions for first downs, and looks like a guy with the athleticism, the quickness, the speed that could potentially slot in as your slot wide receiver, could take over for Drake Stoops now that Stoops is off to the NFL. So it's an intriguing option that, to me, just slides right into the starting lineup. Obviously, he'll come and he'll compete for snaps, but I assume that Andrew Anthony's not going to be ready to go come week 1. And so you're looking at a wide receiver rotation. At least your top 4 wide receivers are probably going to be Nick Anderson, Jayden Gibson, Jaleel Farouk, and Deion Burks. And then we'll see kind of how it all shakes out whenever Andrew Anthony comes back. Now, Anthony might be ready for the start of the season, but given the nature of ACL injuries and the recovery times, usually it's about a year in which people are out. But he could be back faster than that. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he were to return, quicker than that, what was it, week 7 or so, week 5 or 6, the Texas game, basically that second weekend in October, if he wasn't back before then. So you add a impact player, someone who can make plays in every area of the passing game, and also is a really, really good runner on jet sweeps. I know jet sweeps are a bit of a dirty word around here, but maybe this is the guy that can help unlock that part of your game. Drake Stoops was not a jet sweep guy. Jaleel Farouk's pretty good at it. Gavin Freeman, not so good at it. So now you got a guy with pretty great speed that and the ability to make people miss and break tackles that you can hand the ball off to behind the line of scrimmage, and he's going to make a play for you. You can throw a wide receiver screen to him, and he's going to make a play for you. So I like the addition there. It's not going to make up for your offensive line loss, but a guy that can make plays after the catch, you can get him the ball in the short area of the field, and he can go make a play for you. That takes a little bit of the pressure off your offensive line. if you can get the ball out of your hands quickly and then pick up chunk yardage on easy completions. That's huge for a passing attack. This is the guy that was ranked as the top wide receiver in the transfer portal, market. And so that's huge. And it just goes to show the job that Emmett Jones continues to do on the recruiting trail. Deion Burks was choosing between the Sooners and the Texas Longhorns. Ultimately, he chooses the Sooners. And it's a stacked wide receiver room for Oklahoma, and you get another one. And, Jackson Arnold's going to have all the talent in the world on the outside and at running back and potentially even tied in with Davin Mitchell to throw to. Now we just got to block for him because the wide receiver skill talent is there. Between Anderson and Gibson and Anthony and Burks and Farouk and Brandon Thompson and Jaquez Petaway and the freshmen they've got coming in. This is a stacked wide receiver core that Emmett Jones has built over the last couple of years. And man, I cannot wait to see how they use all these guys because I'm of the mind that, okay, say Davin Mitchell's not ready to be an every down tight end for you in 2024. Well, you've got a deep stable of wide receivers that allows you to go 4 and 5 wide pretty much every play. And you can bring back that air raid type offense where you're in 4 and 5 wide offenses or 4 and 5 wide formations. And you're just letting your quarterback sling it. And you're, running stuff, with just your 5 offensive linemen, and you're letting your running back just make a play and find the open hole. I'm all for that, man. Listen, I get that you want to use a tight end because it helps, it helps defenses or helps your offense keep defenses off balance and prevents them from completely reading into what you're trying to do because it could be a run or a pass out of 11 personnel. Well, good offenses are able to run out of 10 personnel too. And if that's going to be your better formation, then by all means, go for it, man. Don't feel like you have to put a tight end on the field. Now, if you do, let's see if we can get some better production out of the tight end position than we did in 2023, because you don't want to have a guy out there that makes your game plan basically 10 on 11, which is what a lot of what Oklahoma had to do this year was. And some of that might be due to Austin Stogner. Some of that might be due to simply that Jeff Lebby was reluctant to get the tight end involved in the passing game for whatever reason. After Braden Willis had a great year the year before, Austin Stogner was, for the most part, non-existent for a lot of the year. And I don't think that's completely on Stogner. I think some of it is on some of his athletic limitations at this point. But I think a lot of it is also just the way that the offense was designed and the game plans that they came up with. So Deion Burks to the Sooners, huge addition for Emmett Jones, for Oklahoma, for Jackson Arnold, for this offense. And they're going to have more portal additions as well because they have to. They got to continue to build that offensive line. They got to look maybe for, a playmaker on the defensive line, somebody who can help bolster that group up front. We'll see where it goes from here, and we'll have you covered here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Again, we're free and available on every platform, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow myself on Twitter at John9Williams and the show at Locked On Sooners on every social media platform, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, what have you. Go follow us over there. But until next time, for my partner, Josh Helmer, having a little bit of a breather this week. All kinds of news coming down when Josh isn't in town. That's crazy. We'll get his takes on all these things when he's back. But follow Josh at Josh on Ref. And until next time, I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.